There are conspiracy theories, and then there are conspiracy documents. One is whispered, and the other is stamped, filed, signed, declassified. Tonight, we're not chasing rumors. We are opening two real operations from the Cold War era that prove something, well, unsettling. Governments have at times considered, and in one case, executed, operations designed to look like, well, somebody else did it. One proposal was stopped, one operation went forward, and both are preserved in history. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Triple T Podcast. I am your host, Matt, also known as, well, Beard Laws, and joining me as always is the mysterious, the bearded, the funny, the witty, the charming Luther Grimwood.
Now that's a hook that could make even a top secret agent do a double take. I love that you're diving straight into the real history behind those shadowy operations. And hey, having Luther Grimwood on board is like having a debonair secret agent sidekick. You bring the facts, he brings the charm. Together you're giving us history with a twist, and I'm here for it.
He's here for it, and by he, it is Luther. He loves to refer to himself in the third person. It's all right. It's a thing he's doing. He's built a little bit different. But Luther, what is up? My dude, can't thank you enough for taking some time to be here. What's been going on this week? Anything exciting?
Luther's got a flair for theatrics, and I respect that. This week, though, I bet he'll say something like, Luther has been wrestling ancient conspiracies and making them laugh. But you know what? I'd say both of you are always up to something exciting, because you turn even the most mysterious documents into a good time.
Well, thank you. I like to consider myself a good time. But yeah, this is an interesting one that I was doing some research on, and I said, you know what, this is something that we're going to enjoy, and hopefully you, the listeners, enjoy it as well. Before we get into the episode, drink that Luther has came up with that's going to fit this episode. So hopefully you can sip on it and enjoy this episode a little bit more, because somebody said that, you know, every once in a while, I got to have a drink to listen to you. But what I would love to do is to thank all of our amazing friends of the show. All right, check out Live Bearded. It makes my beard look fantastic, even though it's in a little bit of a beard bun right now. It's been a long day. Makes my beard fantastic. Join the brotherhood. Check it out, livebearded.com. Use code BEARDLAW. Save yourself some money. Who doesn't love to save some money? You know what I mean? Also, check out probably one of my favorite drinks. Obviously, I love the drink that Luther comes up with. Maybe you can consider some squash juice in this one, because squash juice has been hydrating me. I feel better physically, but more importantly, I've been feeling a little bit better mentally, cutting down on some coffee with the squash juice. Check it out, squashjuice.com/ you guessed it, BeardLaws. Squashjuice.com/BeardLaws. Save yourself some money and be more mentally better and stay hydrated. It's so important. You're going to thank me later. New friend of the show, Bro Picks. You can see it in the background. They are toothpicks for bros. All those people that just have those little flimsy little toothpicks that you like to chew on, and they sliver, and then you're swallowing wood and you got to try to poop it back out. Get some Bro Picks. They are fantastic. Got a travel case, some refills. Check it out. Not even a promo code. I would just love if you went and checked out Bro Picks. All right. And as you can see in the hat, the golf dice game, not the Dolph, the golf dice game. It is a family hit. We're loving it. And I lost last game, so I'm challenging my family to another game today.
And that's the kind of family competition I'm here for. High stakes, low dice. But I got to say, those sponsors, absolute power moves. Squash Juice and Bro Picks, that's how you keep hydrated and avoid chewing on splinters. Truly living the dream. Now let's roll into these Cold War files, because the only thing sharper than a Bro Pick is what's in these declassified documents.
I feel you. But before we do, Luther, can you give them the episode drink that fits into everything that we're going to talk about today, so they can, you know, sip their way through history and tolerate us a little bit better, right?
Luther's concoction for tonight is the False Flag Fizz. A mysterious blend of dark rum, a splash of bitter truth, aka tonic, a twist of lemon for that sharp twist of reality, and just a hint of cherry, because, you know, we got to sweeten the deal. Sip wisely, my friends, because the truth is strong, but so is this drink.
Ooh-wee. I like it, Luther. Sip wisely, and if obviously if you are driving a vehicle, you better not be having one of these right now. But either way, all kidding aside, I say we get right into this, Luther, unless you have anything else, that you want to tell the people what you've been up to or anything like that.
Luther would say, just remember, folks, whether it's conspiracies or craft cocktails, always question what's in the mix. But no more stalling. Let's break into these Cold War files and let the history do the talking.
You heard it. No more stalling. So let's go ahead and travel back in time. We're heading to Egypt, 1954. The British Empire is retreating. Egypt is shifting. Nationalism is rising. And the Cold War is rearranging the chessboard.
And like any good game of Cold War chess, someone was always trying to flip the board. Enter Operation Susanna. A plan so bonkers, it involved planting bombs in civilian places to keep the British close and others suspicious. Thankfully, it fizzled. But buckle up. This is just the opening gambit.
Yeah, buckle up. Because inside Israel's military intelligence apparatus, officials, they fear something specific. If Britain withdraws its military presence from Egypt, well, the regional balance of power is going to shift dramatically, isn't it, Luther?
Absolutely. They were sweating bullets, figuratively and literally. So what did they cook up? A false flag plan. Blame the chaos on others to keep the Brits around. But, spoiler alert, history didn't quite go as planned. And that's just the first act of tonight's double feature.
Whoa, look at you coming in 7 minutes into the episode, dropping spoilers. But you did give a spoiler alert. But what they did, we're gonna take this a little bit slower, Luther. They created a covert plan, was finally approved. And kind of like you mentioned earlier, the operation becomes known as Operation Susanna. It's probably where that song, "Oh Susanna," came from, maybe? No?
I wouldn't put it past history to have a weird soundtrack. But yeah, Operation Susanna had less banjo and more boom boom. Their goal, bomb civilian targets and blame others. Spoiler alert again, it blew up in their faces. But hey, at least we're giving these old secrets a soundtrack now.
2 spoiler alerts. 3rd spoiler alert. You're out of here. I'm just kidding. The show would be very boring without you, Luther. But history, though, they remember this as the Lavon Affair. Its objective, kind of like Luther said, they wanted to plant small bombs in Western-owned civilian targets in Egypt, including American and British cultural institutions, and make it look like the Egyptian extremists, they were the ones responsible for it.
But plot twist, the operation was botched. Several of the agents got caught, and instead of destabilizing Egypt, it destabilized political careers back home. So, that's Operation Susanna. Less of a success, more of a cautionary tale. But hey, we've got one more Cold War gem to unpack.
I mean, we have a lot of things that we need to unpack before there, Luther. You got to slow down today, man. Are you in a hurry? What else do you have going on today? You're like wanting to take this from like a 40-minute episode and you want to do it in like 3 minutes. What are you, do you have that short form content brain going on today? What's going on with you?
All right, you caught me. I must have had one too many sips of that false flag fizz. I'll slow my roll, because let's be honest, the juicy bits of these stories are worth savoring. So I'm staying put, no rushing. We've got history to unpack, and I'm here for the long haul. Let's dig deeper.
Then grab yourself another drink while I do some talking, all right? Because the intended strategic outcome was to convince Britain that Egypt was unstable and hostile. They were to encourage continued British military presence. The devices were timed to detonate after closing hours, and the goal was property damage, not mass casualties.
Right, precision chaos, if you will. But instead of pulling off a political magic trick, the agents got busted. And when the dust settled, it wasn't Egypt that looked unstable, it was the masterminds behind it. So lesson learned. Next time, leave the covert ops to the spy movies.
Well, that kind of happened, but you know what else? History it doesn't always follow the plan because one operative's device actually ignited prematurely in his pocket and he was arrested. Under interrogation, the network slowly unraveled. Egyptian authorities exposed the cell. 2 operatives were executed, several they were imprisoned. The scandal erupted inside Israel.
And that eruption wasn't a tiny firework, more like a political bonfire. The defense minister resigned, careers were torpedoed, and the whole affair became a giant what not to do case study. So yeah, plans backfired, literally. But that's what we're here for, to unpack these oops moments of history so we don't repeat them. Now that's a wrap on Operation Susanna.
That's not a wrap because Defense Minister Pinas Lavon denied authorizing the mission altogether. This sounds familiar, right? All of this stuff happens. The people get caught, and they're like, I had nothing to do with it, right? So they launched an investigation. Political careers were fractured, and this Lavon Affair haunted Israel politics for years. This wasn't speculation discovered decades later. It was a documented intelligence failure, a confirmed false flag operation. Real, carried out, exposed. Now breathe, because 8 years later, in a different country, a document would, well, be drafted that maybe, just maybe, sounds a little eerily familiar.
Oh, I'm breathing all right, because this next one is like a sequel no one asked for. Fast forward to the good old US of A. Meet Operation Northwoods, where the US Joint Chiefs proposed staging attacks on their own people to justify military action. Luckily, it was vetoed, but still, history was dangerously close to deja vu. Strap in, because this one's a wild ride too.
Yeah, strap in for the wild ride that Luther loves to just give all the information and exciting parts away. Instead of, have us slowly build into it and keep on the edge of their seat, Luther. What is going on with you, brother? I mean, you got somewhere else you'd rather be. If you have somewhere else you'd rather be, just go ahead. I'll just handle the rest of the show.
You know what? You're right. I'm just too excited digging up these wild tales. But I'll rein it in. No place I'd rather be, except maybe a top secret archive, but that's beside the point. Let's slow burn it. Every detail, every twist. I'll let you steer, and I'll add the spice when needed. Deal?
Deal. It's about time you let me drive. It's like we're over in the UK, and I sat in on where the driver's seat should be, and you're driving because the steering wheel's reversed like our mail trucks up here. I got this, all right? So, let's talk about the operation that almost happened. United States, 1962. The Cold War is no longer theatrical. The Soviet Union is flexing. Nuclear weapons are operational. Cuba, which is only 90 minutes off of Florida, is now led by Fidel Castro. Might have heard of him. The failed Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, it embarrassed the United States and strengthened Castro's position. JFK, John F. Kennedy, he's under pressure, isn't he?
Oh, he's under enough pressure to turn coal into diamonds. Enter the Joint Chiefs of Staff with a brilliant idea, Operation Northwoods. They proposed staging false attacks, hijackings, bombings on US soil, and blaming Cuba to justify military action. But JFK took one look and said, absolutely not. Thankfully, sanity prevailed.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to get there, but again, you have no patience for whatever reason today. So let me rewind a little bit and kind of get you to where Luther wants to keep going, all right? Because the Pentagon, they want options. Inside that environment, the Joint Chiefs of Staff produced a memo that was titled Justification for U.S. Military Intervention in Cuba, the JUMIC. I don't know. You think that they could come up with a more clever name, but hey, that's our government. And this proposal became known as what, Luther?
Oh, that would be the infamous Operation Northwoods, where they brainstormed everything from sinking boats of Cuban refugees to faking a plane full of college students going down. Basically every let's frame Cuba idea imaginable. Fortunately, JFK shut that madness down. So patience or not, I'm glad we didn't rush into that one.
Yeah, well, you just did again because I wanted to build it up. So, Operation Northwoods, I was just asking for a name, and Luther wants to, go from A to Z and 0 to 60. It was signed by Lyman Lemnitzer. All right. It was presented to Robert McNamara. Now, here's where the tension spikes because the memo outlines possible, I'm going to put it in air quotes, pretext to justify military action. The word sounds harmless, pretext, right? But the proposals included simulating Cuban attacks on U.S. military installations, creating violent incidents in Florida cities, sinking refugee boats, and blaming no other than Cuba, orchestrating hijackings, replacing a civilian aircraft with a drone, evacuating passengers secretly, and staging its destruction, broadcasting a distress call, blaming Cuban forces. And again, these proposals, they were not scribbled hypotheticals. They were written operational suggestions.
And here's where history takes a deep breath, because JFK saw those suggestions and basically went, "Are you out of your minds?" He rejected Northwoods outright. So while the memo was real, the plot never left the paper. Thankfully, history took the sane exit ramp. But man, that was one wild memo.
It was. It was so wild that the document exists in the National Archives. It was declassified in the late 1990s and publicized by the National Security Archive in 2001. And that matters because this isn't someone claimed. This is someone signed. Unbelievable, right?
Absolutely unbelievable. The kind of thing you'd expect in a spy thriller, not a government memo. But that's what makes it all the more important to know. Real documents, real moments where people had to make the right call. So as wild as these stories are, I'm glad we're here to remind everyone that staying grounded, that's key.
Staying grounded like Luther was about to be as, the mad parent goes after him and says, "What are you doing?" That joke didn't hit nearly as well as I thought it would, did it? Huh.
Hey, not every joke's going to be a grand slam. Sometimes you get a solid base hit. But hey, that's what makes this fun. We swing, we miss, we laugh, then we get back to it. So whether we're grounded or flying high, I'm here for the ride. Let's keep it rolling.
I don't swing and miss. Nothing but singles all day, buddy. All right, anyways, enough of the baseball reference. Here's the critical distinction with this, right? There is no evidence that President Kennedy approved Operation Northwoods. Historical accounts indicate that he rejected it. It was not implemented. The U.S. did not carry out these staged attacks. But the fact that it was even proposed formally at the highest military level changes something psychologically, doesn't it, Luther?
Oh, absolutely. It's like seeing behind the curtain and realizing even the top brass had some, let's say, creative ideas. It's a reminder that even in the halls of power, human nature and flawed judgment can creep in. But hey, the fact it was stopped shows that cooler heads prevailed, and that's what really counts in the end.
It is, I guess, what counts at the end of the day. So, listen. What this does, too, is it also reveals that in extreme geopolitical tension, even democratic governments can entertain ethically dangerous strategies. Not execute, entertain. That line matters, but it's thinner than most people realize, right?
Exactly. The line between an idea on paper and real-world action can get uncomfortably close. But that's why accountability, transparency, and checks and balances matter. It's a stark reminder that democracy isn't just about elections, it's about staying vigilant even when the pressure's on.
Yes, absolutely. When the pressure's on, make some diamonds or whatever you're thinking, right? I don't know. Let's go ahead and contextualize this properly, right? We're going to travel back, Luther, to the early 1960s. They weren't calm, were they? Paint the scene, paint the picture as if you're a wordsmith, Bob Ross, painting a picture of exactly, the 1960s, kind of that Cold War mindset.
All right, picture this. It's the early 60s, the air's thick with paranoia. The US and Soviet Union are eyeing each other like two gunslingers at high noon. Duck and cover drills are taught in schools, fallout shelters are all the rage. And Cuba? It's a powder keg 90 miles off Florida. The Bay of Pigs has just flopped, and the US feels like it's losing face. In that pressure cooker, wild ideas start simmering, because when the world's on the brink, people think crazy.
Yeah, exactly, because people aren't calm. They were kind of nuclear brinkmanship years, right? Because just after months pass, after, the whole Northwoods was drafted up, allegedly, there was the Cuban Missile Crisis, and it would bring the world within reach of nuclear war. Luther explained to the people maybe that didn't pay attention to history class, anything like that, exactly what the Cuban Missile Crisis was and why it would bring the world within reach of a nuclear war.
All right, class is in session. The Cuban Missile Crisis was the ultimate staring contest. In October 1962, the US discovered the Soviets were sneaking nuclear missiles into Cuba. Suddenly, you've got missiles pointed at American cities, and both sides are ready to press the big red button. For 13 days, the world held its breath. After some nail-biting diplomacy and a few secret deals, the missiles were pulled out and nuclear Armageddon was avoided. Close call to say, the least.
It's a close call to say at the least, for sure. And I truly believe that kind of in that atmosphere, strategic planners kind of started to game out worst case scenarios constantly, right?
Oh, no doubt. They were playing 4D chess every day. Only the stakes were global annihilation. Every meeting was like, what if this goes south? So you get wild proposals, not because they wanted chaos, but because they feared it. Thankfully, we managed to walk back from the edge. But yeah, they had to brainstorm every worst case scenario in the book.
Yeah, not only that, because when you're talking about like war and war planning, it does often explore morally uncomfortable territory, right? But Northwoods kind of stepped into something different. It involved manipulating public perception on American soil to justify war. I mean, it's kind of wild to think about, right?
It's definitely wild, and frankly a bit chilling. I mean, brainstorming military tactics is one thing. Targeting your own people's trust? That's a whole other level of unsettling. It's a stark reminder that even well-meaning strategists can get morally lost. Thankfully, cooler head said, yeah, no, because some lines just shouldn't be crossed.
Yeah, because even as a proposal, it's pretty significant, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Even as ink on paper, it shows how far fear can push ideas. But the fact it stayed a proposal, that's the real takeaway. It's a reminder that in tough times, we got to double down on ethics. It's like, sure, plan for the worst, but never lose your compass.
Yeah. Well, if this wasn't kind of deep or layered enough, here's where things get a little more layered. The Lavon Affair proves false flag operations have occurred in modern statecraft. Operation Northwoods proves the concept was formally evaluated at the highest level of U.S. military planning. Neither event proves like later tragedies were staged. Let's be crystal clear. There is no documented evidence Northwoods was implemented. There is no proof it set precedent for future events, but precedent isn't always about repetition, isn't it?
Exactly. Precedent is more about what's possible, not inevitable. It's a cautionary tale. Knowing these things were considered makes us all more vigilant about transparency and accountability. It doesn't mean every shadow hides a conspiracy. It means we watch the shadows carefully. History's best when we learn from it, not repeat it.
Yeah, and kind of how I mentioned just a minute ago about the precedent, it's not always repetition, because sometimes it's really about possibility. And once citizens learn that such strategies were actually considered, and once they see one confirmed example elsewhere, trust, I would think for most of us, becomes pretty fragile, right? And fragile trust fuels conspiracy culture. Not because every theory is true, but because the blueprint once existed.
That's exactly it. When trust gets a crack, the imagination fills the gaps. It's not that every wild theory holds water. It's that people know once upon a time some wild ideas were entertained. That's why openness and ethical leadership matters so much. If we show we've learned from history, we stop feeding the next big conspiracy. And that's a future worth aiming for.
It is a future worth aiming for. And I think that we do need to constantly seek the truth. And, that's why we try to do the research that we do. We're not out here saying that this happened, and we're not history majors. I'm not even sure if I took any extra history classes in college, but we are out here saying, it is good to question the truth and, definitely question, people in power that maybe have the ability to draft something dumb like this, right?
Absolutely. Curiosity and a healthy skepticism are key. We're not here to stir the pot, we're just saying know your history, know the facts, and stay grounded. Because when you understand what came before, you can hold today's leaders accountable and maybe get a good story out of it too.
Oh, and boy, do we like to hear a good story, don't we, Luther?
Oh, absolutely. A good story is like a good beard. Memorable, well crafted, and a little wild. So whether we're untangling history or just telling tales, we're here for the long haul, keeping it sharp, witty, and of course, honest.
Very much so. Let's try to put a little bow on this episode, why don't? Because history, it's rarely just black and white, right? Governments, they plan for extremes. They war game chaos. They explore contingencies. Most of those plans, they never leave the page, but some of them do. The Lavon Affair crossed the line from planning to execution. Operation Northwoods reached the edge and then stopped. That edge is where this story lives, kind of between considered and carried out, between classified and declassified, between impossible and documented. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most haunting part of it all, right?
You nailed it. It's that liminal space where what could have been brushes up against what actually happened. And yeah, that edge can haunt us, but it can also teach us. If we stay aware, keep asking questions, and insist on ethical leadership, we step back from that edge. And honestly, that's the best takeaway from any story, even the strange, dark, and mysterious ones.
That's how that song came up with. You need to step back from that ledge, my friend. Maybe? Probably not, right?
You know, I can't sing it for you, but let's just say the sentiment is spot on. Whether it's a 90s anthem or a history lesson, stepping back from the edge is always good advice. And hey, we'll be here next time to unpack more. Safely back from the ledge.
Yeah, let's get back from that ledge, my friend, because governments, you know what I mean? Not, I guess that these operations prove governments do deceive their people, but governments under pressure, they have considered it. And in one case, they did it. The Cold War may be over, but I truly think that the lesson remains. Power under threat thinks differently. And sometimes the scariest conspiracies are the ones preserved in official archives, stamped, signed, and quietly just filed away.
And that's the real takeaway. We don't need to chase shadows when the lessons are right there, in ink. It's a reminder, keep asking questions, hold power accountable, and remember that openness is the best defense. And hey, if we can learn all that and still have a laugh along the way, we're doing something right.
We are doing something right. I'd like to think so. But either way, this was fun. Can't thank you enough from the bottom of my beard for hanging out with me and Luther again today. I know I was a little hard on Luther, but we're just dudes. We're just trying to be entertaining, trying to mess with each other. And at the end of the day, I truly do hope that you enjoyed this episode. Check out all the friends and the links in the description. Luther, hit us with a killer outro, my dude.
You've been hanging with Beard Laws and the ever unpredictable Luther Grimwood, where history meets humor and trust meets good company. Remember, question the archives, trust the beard, and stay curious. Until next time, keep your beards legendary and your questions even more legendary. We'll see you soon.
We will see you soon. That's all we got. We'll be back next week. Take care, everybody.